Well, that one I could hit out of the park in a second. Racism was also part of the history of America, and I'm pretty sure that I wanted to destroy that. So was slavery, so was sexism, imperialism, bombing people just because we want their stuff. These are things about American culture that I'd like to change. So, yeah, actually, I do want to destroy our history. What else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How long do you get to ask questions?
What's the questioning period? Did I say 2 minutes? It's listed in your assignment packet. And it's not very long. And if you have a list of questions like this, you can burn up that time really quickly. Is it 2? 2. Okay. Well, in asking what notes you took, you actually sort of answered my next question. What questions do you develop? So you're doing a wonderful job on developing questions. However, let's think about my original question, which is notes. What you should be doing when I'm giving my speech, because you're not going to have the speech in front of you, and maybe I shouldn't have asked you to take it out. Maybe I should have made you do this without that assistance. What you should do you should have a basic outline of my speech written down. And that could be that's really easy when I'm helping you with my visual presentation. It's one of the reasons I require everybody to give a visual presentation. It makes it easier for you as an opponent to take notes. So when my competitive debaters are listening to a speech, they're basically copying down the speech as quickly as they can. They're not writing it verbatim. They can't do that fast. But they can do the basic topic sentences and the most important stats. So you should be able to write down a sentence for basically every paragraph that I give. And if I were what we call flowing, that's note-taking on a speech, if I were flowing this, I'd say Obama example, H1N1 example, Constitution, warrant public health, end smoking, harms of smoking, secondhand smoke, bans are effective, state bans increasing, and that's basically it. So then I've just mapped out the entire speech. And you can do that. I'm not speaking too fast. You got plenty of time. Aaron.
Can you make questions before the speech? Like
Oh yeah, in fact I would encourage you to right. Hello, Amma. I'm going to encourage you to have those questions ready beforehand. Yeah, absolutely. So Aaron, you already have a lot of the information because we've had disclosure day, so you know basically what your opponents are going to argue. You can develop a lot of these questions you've got right now, which means you don't have to spend a lot of your note-taking time developing questions because you'll probably already have a list of those questions. And you can spend more of your time mapping the speech and writing down some of my key points. Here's why. Take a look at the planning or the debate primer sheet, the debating skills primer. Debating skills primer. Take a look at delivering the rebuttal speech. Delivering the rebuttal skills speech, first bullet. Here's how you deliver a rebuttal speech. You have your flow, the notes you took on their speech, and you said, hey judge, guess what? They said this in their speech. My opponent said this. And then you flip to your evidence. But I've got evidence that counters that. They haven't considered this. And then you give some of your evidence. And you go point by point trying to destroy everything that they've said. And that's a rebuttal speech format. My opponent said this, here's my response. Then my opponent said this, here's my response. If you've mapped their speech, you kind of have a script. But you've got to do that while they're giving the speech. So if you've done that, then you're all good to go. And that's where we get to the rebuttal speech. All right, so give me an indication. How will you rebut my arguments? What's your rebuttal speech going to be, Adriana?
Like you say that stopping the production of tobacco products is going to increase public health.
Yes.
Well, the money coming out of that is helping our economy. So if you put these tobacco producers and these tobacco farmers out of business, you're pretty much destroying our economy doing this.
Okay, so Adriana's rebuttal speech is doing what I've asked you to do with counterarguments. It's developing a separate argument. She's not destroying my Toolman model. She's developing a separate argument based on money. And she's talking about the loss of tax funds from the loss of taxes on smoking and tobacco-related products. And hopefully, if she's done her prep work on negative research, she's going to have all sorts of data about how much we make from taxes on smoking and where that money goes. So in her speech, she should say, guess what, Judge? They talk about this and this and this, but they've ignored one key point. And that key point today is that smoking may kill people, but it also makes a heck of a lot of money for the federal and state government. And here's where that money goes. And then she's going to give stats on the money and explain where that money goes. And especially if she can find out that tax dollars for cigarettes go to supporting public health, which I believe a lot of them do, then that's going to be really effective. Because what happened when the tobacco companies settled out of court with states and they paid billions upon billions of dollars to the states in damages, is the states took that money and then they're supposed to devote them to public health. So if Adriana gets up there with the stats and says all that, first of all, she's got a rebuttal speech already that's going to last at least 2 or 3 minutes right here with no problem. And then she could actually switch to another argument. Does anybody have another argument besides the money argument that you could use in rebuttal? Tori.
Like when people stop drinking or something, they switch to something else, or like stop doing alcohol and other things. So like if people don't have to smoke anymore, they stop doing alcohol.
Good. The impacts of quitting. So then Tori would get up and say, I don't know what world my opponent's living in, but it's definitely not my world, because when addicts quit a controlled substance, they're most often not successful. And let me tell you about what happens. First of all, they could switch to something else. So like when alcoholics stop drinking, quite often they start smoking like there's no tomorrow. Why? Because they're switching from drinking and they're going to smoking. So they'll often switch. And Tori says, what are they going to switch to? Don't know. We've illegalized everything. So maybe they're going to switch to something else that's illegal. Or what other option? What else might they do? They might not switch at all. They might do it illegally. So now we're going to create a culture of illegal smokers. What evidence of precedent do you have that that would probably happen? Thank you very much. So you're going to talk about prohibition. And you give me some history of prohibition. And once again, if you've done your research here and you've done your research here, you have more than enough to fill that speech time.
And like add on to that one, like people always say that when someone's trying to quit, they're like really irritable.
Yes?
And then if everybody had to do that, it could
Make America angry?
yeah.
Yes. Suddenly America is very bitter and angry as an entire culture, like we weren't bitter and angry enough, and now we're just going to go off the deep end. I agree with you totally. So there could be a direct impact on the mood of America, if you will. There's even a third argument that you guys mentioned before, but we haven't even advanced, and that is the privacy argument. Personal choice. Correct. And then on the neg, I could say, well, you know what? Okay, I understand. I understand the secondhand smoke thing. So fine, but guess what we're doing? State public smoking bans. Those are on the books and increasing. That's fine. But today you're talking about something crazy. You're talking about totally illegalizing smoking, and that's way off the deep end. By the way, I intentionally constructed this model to be a little bit extreme, to give you an opportunity to see how counterarguments could work. There are 3 really strong counterarguments up there right now. If you choose to be a rebuttal speaker, your responsibility is to consider how these arguments can come out in that rebuttal speech, especially in the my opponent said this, we say this frame. Okay? Everybody speaks in both debates. So, and you and your partner choose what capacity you want to speak. So Adriana, if you wanted to be the constructive speaker in both debates, and Mihaela decides she wanted to be the rebuttal speaker in both debates, that's fine. If you want to flip off, that's fine. So you could be rebuttal in one and constructive in the other. She could be rebuttal in one, constructive in the other. Totally up to you. Okay. Other questions? David, shh. Hey. Hey. You'll have time. Take a look at Wednesday. That's last second coordination time, last second for somebody who's going on Thursday, still well in advance for many of you of your debate. You'll have time to do this, to talk with your partner. But right now what you need to do is pay attention to these questions, because I don't want to answer them twice. David.
If you have an okay rebuttal where you have one or 2 minutes of information going to the debate,
Yeah.
if they provide a bad constructive speech, does that lower your grade too?
No. You deal with what you deal with. So let's say they've given almost nothing on a constructive speech, like 2 minutes, and it has nothing in it. Fine, you spend a minute of your time destroying their constructive speech, and then you spend the other time re-emphasizing what was in your constructive speech. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Aaron.
So like, for your rebuttal speech,
Yes.
since you have like the 3 points,
Mm-hmm.
so would you give just one of those, like
Whatever you think you can fill the time with. So, and also it depends upon what your partner gave in a constructive. So let's say that in a constructive speech, my partner really went over the money in the constructive, then maybe I don't really need to do that work. Maybe I just remind the judge, remember we talked about the money and this was the impact? Okay, but I have something else to talk to you about as well, and that's the impact of quitting, what happens with that. So it totally depends. What I would have going into this, I would say I know that there's a privacy argument, I know there's an impact argument, I know there's a money argument, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to use in rebuttal, but I'm going to determine that when I'm listening to what's going on. Okay? That's why the rebuttal speaker has that responsibility to kind of think on their feet.
you know how gas stations sell the cigarettes and everything, don't they from that too?
Gas stations?
Yeah.
Well, sure. I'm sure that a lot of their income comes from the sale of tobacco, so they would lose money, certainly. I don't know that gas prices would go up. Gas prices are affected by factors beyond just regular independent sellers, by taxes and by OPEC and everybody else. Todd?
So what's in your rebuttal doesn't necessarily have to be
No. Because remember, I could give a rebuttal on money, and I never mention money in my constructive. It depends on what you want to do. Okay, one last handout, and I'm sorry for all the paper, but these are useful. This is a checklist of planning for the debate to make sure that you're on top of everything.
You know how we do the speech rebuttal for affirmative and then a speech rebuttal for a negative? Do you do like the negative the same as the positive, or do you do that?
I'm not sure I understand your question. You do all your negative stuff on your negative debate day, and you do all your affirmative stuff on your affirmative debate day. So you have 2 scheduled debates.